Alrighty, everybody, welcome back. It's Film Friday time again. Today, we're going to be looking at The Social Network and going through 3 different films from David Fincher in order, starting with The Social Network, moving into The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and then finishing with Zodiac at the end. So if you haven't seen any of these movies, I recommend you go and watch them right now. They're all very good movies, and they're all very good introductions into the world of David Fincher, who is most famous for, obviously, Fight Club, films like Seven, Gone Girl, Panic Room, and The Game are all very, very good Fincher movies. So again, if you haven't seen anything from Fincher, go check them out. Go check out those movies in particular. And with that said, let's get into the first part of our analysis. All right, everybody. Well, let's do it. I had to grab my tie, because it's teaching time. So let's get to the teaching. David Fincher's films hum with the restless pulse of isolation. Beneath the surface of courtroom depositions, encrypted messages, and icy Scandinavian landscapes, his characters are united by a simple ache. They are lonely people straining for connection in compromised, hostile worlds. The Social Network, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Zodiac, even the echoes of Fight Club all orbit the same emotional gravity. These are stories where the human need to reach another soul manifests as obsession, investigation, or destruction. Fincher's style mirrors this emotional architecture. His films unfold as detective montages, patterns stitched together from fragments, evidence building towards a verdict the audience can feel before it's spoken. In The Social Network, the depositions are literal cinematic evidence rooms, fractured memories under oath, each flashback a shard of Rashomon-style recollection. Jesse Eisenberg's Mark Zuckerberg sits in glass and steel, surrounded by the evidence of his own alienation. The rhythm of Reznor and Ross's score, a recursive synth loop with lonely piano plinks, becomes the emotional deposition. Each note is a heartbeat trapped in a server farm, ambition reverberating in an empty room. By the time Zuckerberg refreshes Erica's profile in the film's final shot, the audience understands his verdict without a single line of exposition. He has built a monument to connection that cannot love him back. The same skeleton dances through The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Mikhail Blomkvist and Lisbeth Salander are detectives in different keys. One patient, one feral, but both defined by estrangement. Their connection arrives not as warmth, but as brief alignment of obsessions, 2 isolated people chasing the truth through a lattice of trauma. Fincher frames their investigation as a physical manifestation of the detective montage metaphor. Evidence walls, digital archives, cigarette-stained nightwork. Every scene is another step in a lonely ritual. If they can solve this, maybe they can be seen. Yet even in the fleeting intimacy of their partnership, the film understands that connection here is provisional, transactional, and doomed to fracture. This ache stretches backward through Zodiac. The film's rhythm is pure detective montage. Years pass in jump cuts, desks fill with case files, lives are swallowed by the machinery of obsession. Graysmith, Toschi, Armstrong, men with families, jobs, and neighbors become ghosts to their own pursuit of a phantom. Their connection to the world narrows to coffee, fluorescent light, and coded letters from a killer who will never give them closure. Fincher's thesis, whether spoken or not, is almost Polanyian. People will grasp for connection through any means available, even if it is corrosive, obsessive, or self-erasing. Zuckerberg's refresh key, Salander's encrypted servers, Graysmith's cardboard boxes of evidence, all are private rituals of a hunger unmet. Progress replaces intimacy. Forward motion substitutes resolution. By the time the audience reaches the end of any of these films, the characters have built empires of data, patterns, and proof, but the rooms are still cold. Fincher doesn't hand down moral sentences, he simply lays the evidence before us, meticulous and unblinking until the emotional verdict writes itself. These are lonely people hunting for touch in a world made of glass and code. The detective montage is not just a storytelling tool, it is the embodiment of that search. Piece by piece, pattern by pattern, we are left holding the same haunting truth as his characters. Connection was always the prize, and it remains just out of reach. David Fincher's films are haunted by lonely people searching for connection in hostile, jagged worlds, from Mark Zuckerberg refreshing a page in The Social Network to Lisbeth Salander sifting through encrypted servers in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, to Robert Graysmith hunched over case files in Zodiac. His characters orbit the same quiet truth. Their lives are defined by the ache of isolation. What gives Fincher's work its particular charge is the way he frames that loneliness as a kind of detective montage. Each film is a slow accumulation of fragments where patterns emerge from evidence and emotional verdicts land without a speech. Through the lens of myth, memory, and mistakes, Fincher's cinematic architecture becomes legible. Through myth, Fincher's worlds are built on modern myths, digital, urban, and personal. The Social Network mythologizes the creation of Facebook as a trickster story, Zuckerberg casting himself as the lonely genius stealing fire from Harvard's Olympus, the Winklevi becoming aggrieved warriors, Sean Parker the charming siren, Rashida Jones the quiet oracle reminding everyone every creation myth needs a devil. In Girl with Dragon Tattoo, Blomkvist and Salander are mythic archetypes as well, a knight and a cursed hacker witch, locked in a frozen fable of trauma and pursuit. Even Zodiac becomes a California myth, the faceless killer as a modern urban legend shaping the lives of the men who chase his shadow. These myths provide the scaffolding for Fincher's lonely characters to project meaning onto their obsessions. Through memory, that's the raw material of Fincher's detective montage. In The Social Network, the deposition rooms are memory courts where every flashback is a testimony filtered through ego and resentment. Truth is less important than perception. The film's structure mimics the Rashomon effect of cultural memory fracturing in real time. Zodiac extends that idea across decades. Case files, witness interviews, and personal recollections blur into a fog of incomplete truths. Even in Dragon Tattoo, the investigation depends on archived photographs, old police notes, and stories passed down like family curses. Fincher's characters dig through the detritus of memory, hoping that if they can arrange the fragments just right, connection or closure will emerge. Fincher's emotional verdict always lands on the quiet gravity of mistakes. His characters' choices, sometimes grand and sometimes microscopic, accrete into a weight they cannot escape. Zuckerberg's mistake is not simply betraying Eduardo or alienating Erica, it's believing that measurable progress could replace intimacy. Graysmith's mistake is letting obsession eclipse his life, mistaking the hunt for the connection he craves. Salander's brief alignment with Blomkvist is a flicker of human warmth she mistakes for permanence. In Fincher's world, mistakes are rarely catastrophic by themselves. They are cumulative, inevitable, and often invisible until the room goes quiet and the echo of loneliness is all that remains. By threading myth, memory, and mistakes, Fincher's filmography reads like a cathedral of isolation. Each story is a detective montage in which lonely people chase patterns, evidence, and ghosts, mistaking motion for meaning. They build empires of data and proof, but the rooms stay cold. The audience is left with the same haunting understanding as the characters themselves. All the pieces mattered, but connection remained just out of reach. As you can probably tell, The Social Network is a movie that I thoroughly enjoy and have spent a lot of time thinking about, on top of how much I appreciate Fincher as a director. It's not that he's just precise, it's that he's precise for a reason, and I think that these three movies in particular help to demonstrate why that is particularly effective. Each movie is a version of detective storytelling in what seems to be a very personal and impersonal way. He's trying to tell these stories from what I would consider at least a humanistic standpoint. And if you haven't seen any of Fincher's work, I highly recommend it. This is the first part of the 3-part series for Fincher. This one should clock just under 15 minutes. I was hoping to cut down the length on my video a little bit in comparison to the last one to make it a bit more digestible. So keep your eyes out for the next 2 parts, which again are going to be a more in-depth look on The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Zodiac, and filling out more information on the myth, mistake, and memory theme, and in the context of the Obsession Trilogy. So again, retying everything back to Fincher's lens as an obsessive lens, and how he works with evidence in his movies to display information that you might not quite get in a more linear fashion, say script writing wise. Reading The Social Network transcript from Aaron Sorkin, yes, 100%. If you are into screenwriting, screenplay stuff, anything like that, looking at the difference between the way that Aaron Sorkin and David Fincher use the text itself. Also, if you like the movie, definitely read Ben Mesrich's, I think that's his name, Accidental Billionaires, which is what the screenplay is ultimately based off of. And there's a lot of really good stuff in there, even just as far as like interesting side notes that aren't quote-unquote characterization based, as far as at least how I would phrase it, what Fincher thinks or is trying to say about Zuckerberg. But again, I think that he's taking a humanistic standpoint. I don't think that he's trying to, again, it's coming from the perspective of myth, memory, and mistakes. It's not that Zuckerberg is this mythological guy, it's just that the record isn't concrete. And I think that theme and idea lives in both other movies in that as well. So again, thank you for coming along. I apologize for the little bit of outro ramble there, but again, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like I could talk about in these movies, but I'm trying to make everything concrete, and as I think concrete is the best way to put it. So thank you all for joining me, and I will see you in the next 2 and 3 parts for the Fincher trilogy, and then we're going to finish up the Obsession trilogy with Kubrick and dive into some Kubrick. So I will see you all on the flip-flop later, and that's a Jack Black quote. I love you all. I hope you have a great evening.